Hi everyone, Kim from Expression Artworks. So I had a lot of fun transforming this sign. This was a 12 by 12 inch sign with the white inlay, and all around the frame more was like an orangier color. If you look closely and you see that lighter color coming through, that's what the whole sign looked like. But just on its own, it was too orangey for me and I wasn't too happy about it. So I decided that I wanted to give it more of a chippy, aged, distressed look. Kind of like the paint just has been around for a long time and it's got layers of paint on it and it's been chipping off. So I used a wax candle. I used an acrylic paint called Burnt Umber, which here it is. Great color. And I went ahead, took that candle, and I went all around and just waxed up the edges and the frame. Then I painted it with that burnt umber. I also used this Dixie Belle Vintage Duck Egg, which is one of my favorite colors from Dixie Belle. I use it all the time. It's just a great, beautiful blue. And I used it for the inlay, and then I brushed it on at the very end in certain spots. So after I did the wax and painted the brown over that, I took this scraper and I just scraped along the whole entire frame and all around the sides. And what it did is it just removed some of that brown layer of paint, giving it that chippy look. Here I'm using Essential Stencil, this 4-set pack, a great Easter set, and I'm using this lamb. And here it is. I'll hold it up for you so you could see it really well. And it's so cute. I mean, you have the lamb in the center just kind of like resting, and all around him are vines and just some detail with roses. Really pretty. I liked all the, like I said, the detail around it. So then I decided where I wanted to lay my stencil, and I didn't quite center it. I added a little bit, like I pushed it down slightly towards the bottom and I left more room towards the top because I knew I wanted to add a bow to it. And I'm using this Folk Art chalk paint in Adirondack White to paint my image. And here's a stencil brush that I'm using from Essential Stencil. Really great quality brush. It's a 1/2 inch thick. And because the image is bigger, I wanted to go with a bigger brush. I just grab my paper towel. Whenever you're stenciling, you want to either use a paper towel or a dry cloth to blot and offload because you don't want too much paint on that brush and having the chance that it may bleed through. And that'll just ruin your whole project. So you definitely don't want to do that. And you just kind of go in a circular motion. And here I started to speed up the process because I know this was going to take a while and you don't want to just watch me stencil this whole thing. So just speeding it up so you could still see what I'm doing and the method that I'm using, but just having it go a little faster for you. Because I was using the blue background, I knew that just the one coat wasn't going to cut it. If you look closely, you could still see some of that blue coming through. It's a little transparent, and that's okay if you want more of a faded look, but I really didn't want that blue coming through, so I decided that after I gave it this one coat, I was going to dry it up a little bit and then give it a second layer, just so it looked more opaque. So I'm just kind of going around. As you can see, it's in a circular motion and I'm not applying too much pressure like I was saying before. There's different techniques you could use when you stencil. Some people use a sponge and they kind of sponge it on and blot it. I tend to go this route, but if I'm looking for more of a texture, depending on what the stencil is, sometimes I do use the blotting method with a sponge applicator. And just so you know, I am an affiliate with Essential Stencil. It's something a little bit newer for me for a couple of months now, and I've been using their products for quite a while, so I was really happy to become an affiliate with them. And I will leave my code in the comments here, so you could use my code at any time, whether the products are on sale or not. At checkout, you could use my code and save an additional 10% off. And I'll also leave the link for this stencil set in case you do decide. They have great stencils and transfers, a lot of spring and Easter that they still have in stock, so you might want to go check them out. So even though I knew I was going to go back and give it a second coat, I just lifted it up like on the corner just to see what it was looking like. But see, I realized, it's nice, but it still has that blue coming through, and I'm just going to go back in and give it a second coat. So that's exactly what I did. I just dried it up a bit because you always want to make sure you dry that first coat before you apply a second. And the second coat you could usually get done a lot easier because it just goes faster because you already have that first coat on. And every time I'm adding more paint, I'm always trying to blot it a bit, just like I was saying, so I don't have too much paint coming on and you don't want it to go through that stencil. Sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I just want to make sure that you all know and, get some useful tips, hopefully. Learn something new in case you don't know. I'm just about done. Just filling in the lamb. And there she is. I think she came out so cute. And then I decided, like I was saying, I wanted to add a bow at the end. So I just used different pieces of fabric. Here I'm just using a piece of muslin. And I decided to use 2 of those because I'm going to do some alternating. And I basically did 2 loops on each side and then added a tail. Now, of course, this tail was long and I knew I had to cut it. And then I had this pretty light orange, really that you could use any time of the year. And then I just went back in with the muslin. I had to redo that one because I ran out of the extra to leave a little tail. So I said, okay, I have to shorten my loops here so I have enough for a tail. Thank goodness for the bow dabber because without it, I would be lost. And then I had this really pretty floral piece. It's got little pink roses on it with some green leaves and the background is black. So I liked adding that for a pop of color and I thought it went really nice with that orange, light orange color as well. So I just continued and did the same thing. I did 2 loops on one side, making sure I left enough room for the tail. And of course my tails were a little uneven, so I had to make sure at the very end that I went in and I cut them just to blend that. And you have to do that a lot when making bows. Not all your tails are going to be even. So you could just save that for the end and just cut them just to balance them out and even them out more. And then I ended my bow again with this pretty orange. Great for the fall too, but I feel like you could use it all year long. And I just made sure I gave that a nice tight knot just to keep that bow in place because I didn't want to lose it. And then I flip it over and I give it a double knot, and then I just cut off the excess. And I'm just kind of fixing everything, seeing where I have to cut off, and kind of fluffing up my bow and my loops and placing it where I want it to be, filling it out. And then right in the center of the bow, I want to add a button. So I decided I wanted to add my bow to the corner instead of the center. And then here's the button that I'm using. I like the detail around it, and that color is really nice. Plus wanted to go a little bit darker so you could see the button. I felt like if I went too dark, it would just kind of blend in with the bow. And there it is. I was really happy with the way it came out. Thank you so very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.